It's a pleasure to sit down with you, sir, and it's an honor.
Well, it's great to be here with you.
Sir, as we begin, I'd like to talk about what's going on today. This week we have the CEA, or the Conference of European Armies. Sir, could you tell me a little bit more about this?
Yeah, what this is about is the chiefs of staffs of all the armies pretty much in Europe come together. We meet, we share common ideas, and you know, we all share the same interests. We're interested in deterring any aggression in Europe, and we're interested in sharing ideas on how we can make our armies better.
Mm-hmm. Now, sir, what makes this year's different from previous years? I know you've been to these in the past. I know the location has changed a bit, but specifically this year, what are some of the opportunities this conference presents us?
Well, first of all, this is the 30th anniversary of the conference, so we've been meeting for 30 years. Second of all, this is the largest conference that we've ever had, so we have more countries coming. And third, you know, we're watching what's going on in Ukraine, and we all realize that regional conflicts have global implications, and we need to do everything we can to help the Ukrainians defend their country.
Mm-hmm. Sir, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the challenges specifically that the United States Army has had to face in this region, and how has it adapted to address those, sir?
Well, I think the two big things that happened over the last couple of years, one is COVID, and you know, if you take a look at you know, the pandemic, the Army had to react to that and take care of our soldiers and families that were over here and make sure they got vaccinations, they got the care they needed. At the same time, we had to continue with the mission, and the reason we do the mission is you know, we share the interests of deterring any type of conflict within our NATO countries, and also be in a position to help our other friends and partners in the region, like we're doing with Ukraine. And Ukraine was attacked by Russia, and our administration has said that we're going to give them the support along with the rest of the countries they need to defend their country. And I'm really proud of the support that our soldiers are giving them, both material support, but also giving them the training they need so they can operate the weapon systems we're giving them.
I've heard you say, sir, that that it's important to carry a big stick, but if you can't carry a big stick, carry a sharp stick. Maybe you could explain that a bit.
Yeah, you know, if you go back to one of our presidents back used to talk about speak softly and carry a big stick. And, you know, and today, you know, what we find is that sometimes we don't have the large armies that we used to have, you know. So if you can't have a big stick, you want to make sure it's a sharp stick. And the best way to win without fighting is demonstrate that you can win by fighting. And that's what it's all about.
Now, sir, is that what you're seeing in this theater today?
Well, what I'm seeing is that all these chiefs of staff of their army realize that they must be ready. You know, our armies exist to protect our nations, and if required, to fight and win as part of a joint or a combined force, and that's what all the chiefs are focused on.
So I've also heard you talk about what might be called a 40-year rule. That is that the Army goes through a substantial change every 40 years, whether that's with personnel, training, tactics, equipment. Sir, I want to ask you, do you think we are in one of those colossal shifts right now?
Oh, absolutely. And what I would argue or suggest is, you know, 1940, right before World War II, we went through a major transformation, led then by General Marshall, and then as we came out of Vietnam, quite frankly, when I came into the Army, the late 70s, early 80s, is when we created the Army we had today with air-land battle, the big 5 weapon systems, and now we find ourselves you know, in a inflection point where we're coming out of counterinsurgency, counterterrorism operations. We're still going to have to do them, but the focus as we look around the world is on large-scale combat operations, and we need to be able to do that. And it's not just about new weapon systems, although we are fielding a lot of new weapon systems. It's also changing our doctrine for multi-domain operations. Will be contested in every domain. We're seeing that play out in Ukraine. It's building new organizations like the Multi-Domain Task Force. It's training for this fight at our combat training centers. And then it's our 6 modernization priorities, which we're looking at fielding probably 23 to 24 signature systems will be going into the hands of soldiers by the end of this year. So we're pretty excited about that.
Sir, what are some of the specific things to look forward to out here in this region as we enter the next couple of years?
Well, we're seeing changes as we speak. You know, the 5th Corps is forward here. We have a Theaters Fires Command that is here. And just the type of training, what we're going to see is, you know, long-range precision fires. We're bringing fires back into the force that we need for combat operations. Air defense is coming back into the force. And so a lot of the type of things that we know that we're going to need to be successful, we are training soldiers and we're giving them new equipment. So that's what they're going to see here in the region.
I got to say, sir, it's kind of exciting.
It is exciting.
Sir, speaking of that excitement, I want to talk a little bit about recruitment.
Yeah.
I know there's been some announcements from Russia about them trying to scale up their force. China, of course, in the last couple of years has been trying to do the same thing. And many of us out here in the region have heard headlines, whether it's on TV, in the newspaper, about the past year for Army recruiting. I wanted to ask you, sir, what's some of the good news you can share with us in regards to where we stand right now, sir?
Well, as you said, last year we were challenged in making our numbers for recruiting. This year we are doing much better, and we're waiting to see how it comes out at the end of the year, although I don't think we'll make the large mission we had this year. But what I'm excited about is, first of all, we're not lowering our standards. Quality is more important than quantity. And what we've done is we've stood up a new program called the Future Soldier Prep Course. And this is giving young men and women who, quite frankly, have been challenged during COVID to meet our academic standards, to meet our physical standards, given an opportunity to come into the Army. And within a 90-day period, if they can meet our standards and we are investing in them, they're having the opportunity to join the Army. And what I'm pleased about is 95% of the young men and women who would not have had a chance to serve are getting a chance to serve. And we're talking about 8,000 to 9,000 young men and women who are going to have an opportunity maybe to do one of the most important things that they will do in their life. So I'm excited about that.
Sir, I think that's a great opportunity because, I mean, I know myself, I was in high school not too long ago, and I met a lot of people that maybe wouldn't get the good grades or wouldn't do as well on the test simply because they got bored in school. It wasn't their thing, but I think programs like these, it seems, are kind of reaching out to not only that person, but others as well who, like you said, maybe with COVID and stuff like that, didn't have the same opportunities to succeed.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to do a better job of is exposing young men and women to the Army. 83%, plus or minus a little, come in the Army, come from a military family. And 44% come from a high school that has JROTC when they're only in 10% of the high schools. So what we're seeing is when young men and women are exposed to the military, they tend to join. And what we're seeing right now is retention is at an all-time high.
Really?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, but our challenge is, how do we expose young men and women that have not seen anything about the military? We live in these gated communities, which makes it more difficult. So we are asking, and you know, Soldiers for Life and other people that are out there, go ahead and help us inspire young men and women to serve. Veterans, tell your story, you know, so they know the value of military service. And we're asking people like you, go back to your high school, talk to your friends, and say, hey, look at me, I'm sitting here doing interviews like this. And again, you know, whether you serve 2 years or 40 years in the United States Army, I think it's one of the most important things that you'll do in your life. And when you look back on your life and you get older, you'll be so glad that you served, and no matter what you do or where you go, no one will ever be able to take that away from you. And just one more point is, you know, you can do anything you want to do in the United States Army. In fact, you can be all you can be. Might be a good idea for a commercial, huh?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think for AFN, we should make one of those, right?
Yeah, you might want to do that, yeah.
Well, sir, I'd like to talk just about that, sir. What does be all you can be really mean?
Well, here's what it means. First of all, when I entered the Army active duty in 1981, we had a new slogan called Be All You Can Be. And, you know, so when we're talking about young men and women going into the military, you're really talking to two people. You're talking to maybe their family and their parents, and you're talking to them. And, you know, you ask the question, why should you go into the Army? you should go in the Army so you can be all you can be. Think about that. What a great concept. You know, it's not about being something else or being an army of one or something like that. You're going to have an opportunity to serve in the company of heroes. Think about that.
That's true.
You're going to have the opportunity to get training in a skill set, whether you stay in the Army or not. You're going to get the GI Bill, a chance to go to college. You know, my dad served in the Navy during the Korean War, and he rose to the ranks of second-class petty officer, which is a sergeant equivalent. And he was just so proud when I was growing up of his service in the Navy, and he helped inspire me to serve.
Sir, can we talk a little bit more about that? I heard that you started your professional career working in sewage at 16. Is that right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that is a true story. I mean, where we grew up, you worked. You know, we come from. I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, and it's a great city, home of 2 presidents and multiple general officers. But it was a working class city, and we all had jobs when we were growing up, and. I happened to work for the Quincy Sewage Department, you know, when I was 16 years old for the summer. And I remember they had what they called a pumping station. It had these big grates, and we would put on these waders and have to go down and shovel the human waste that would, you know, build up in these graters. And I remember, you know, never forget mentors. And one of the gentlemen that worked for the department, you know, came up to me and said, "Hey, Jim," he goes, "you don't want to be doing this when you're 45 years old. You know, go to school." I go, "I don't want to be doing this when I'm 16 years old." But it's things like that that give you the resilience to, you know, take on a career like being in the military. And it was good. It was sage counsel for me, and it helped kind of set my path to go to school.
Sir, what made you decide to stay in the Army all these years?
Yeah, I think it's my love for soldiers. You know, I'll be honest, when I first came in the military, I had a chance to go to West Point. There was a 5-year commitment. I thought that, I'd probably get out after 5 years. I'd be 27, and when you're 17 or 18 and thinking about what your life looks like, 27 or 28, looks like, it's fairly old, but I had a chance to serve with the world's greatest soldiers, and that's what kept me in. And very blessed to have a very supportive wife and family, and 3 of my kids served too. So we're very blessed to have the chance to spend 40+ years serving the United States Army.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate it, sir.
All right. Thank you.